So we've already discussed Clive Barker's Jericho, a video game that was great on paper, though the results were less spectacular in actual gameplay. Now though, I think it's time to talk about the man himself, and his works. The man who created the games Jericho and Undying and a whole plethora of other works from stories, films to comics. This time let's talk about Clive Barker's other works such as Hellraiser, Nightbreed, and a personal favorite of mine, Lord of Illusions. Hi, hello, and welcome again everybody to another episode of Natural Juan. As mentioned, this time around we're going to talk about Clive Barker's other works. This is in part due to Clive Barker being a part of the LGBT community and is essentially my offering for Pride Month. Anyway, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell for notifications if you would like to see more content like this. Special shout out too to Mr. Jonathan Green, my patron in Patreon. If you would also like to support my channel and what I do here, you'll find my Patreon, PayPal, and Gcash information in the description below. Now, with all that out of the way, let us find out about Clive Barker's other works. Clive Barker was born on October 5, 1952, and is known to be quite a lot of things from novelist, short story writer, playwright to filmmaker, among other things. Hailing from Liverpool, England, Clive Barker is renowned worldwide thanks to his many works of horror and fantasy. A member of the LGBT community, he often places a lot of emphasis on sexuality in his work, such as Weeworld, which is rather outlandish compared to most traditional fantasy, especially when compared to the likes of Lord of the Rings by Tolkien and the Shannara series by Terry Brooks. Indeed, before his debut in making stories and films, most fantasy stories at the time were either aimed at children or were considered child-friendly. Clive Barker managed to change all that when he introduced Nightbreed and Weeworld. Doubtlessly though, Clive Barker's most famous work is that of Hellraiser. I mean, who can forget the mutilated demons clad in black leather after all? As a horror movie villain, his monstrous Pinhead is probably quite iconic, even though Clive Barker himself prefers to call the character simply the Hell Priest and has, since the beginning of the franchise, never liked the fan nickname. Hellraiser all started with The Hellbound Heart, a short story written by Clive Barker which was published in 1986. It begins with a story of Frank Cotton, a hedonistic man who is obsessed with all kinds of pleasures. He learns of a mysterious puzzle box called the Lemarkan Box, which is thought to be able to open a portal to a place of great pleasure and sensation. He acquires the puzzle box in Germany and takes it to England in the home of his late grandmother. There, he solves the box and is greeted by the Cenobites, demonic beings from a hellish dimension where pleasure and pain are one and the same. Indeed, demonic here is a misnomer, as Clive Barker himself states that these creatures are only giving people what they ask for, which is pleasure. It just so happens that the Cenobites' idea of pleasure also means an eternity of being tortured in hell. This ultimately begins the story as a couple, Rory and Julia, who are connected to Frank Cotton in some way or another, move into the same house, and the horror begins in earnest. The Hellraiser franchise has had a lot of film sequels in tow, 9 to be exact. However, based on the author's own words, the finale for the franchise would be The Scarlet Gospels, which was published in 2015, and is also a crossover with another of Clive Barker's heroes, Detective Harry D'Amour, whom we'll also be discussing a bit later. Scarlet Gospels follows the storyline of the previous films, rather than the Hellbound Heart. Instead of being entities from another dimension that can neither be called good nor evil, but is awful all the same, the Cenobites are considered demons in the Christian sense of the word, and that the Hell Priest is one of its more prominent members. In this novel by Clive Barker, the Hell Priest is seeking Lucifer, who has not been seen for thousands of years, and seeks to change the face of hell itself under the fallen angel's leadership. Another of Clive Barker's more famous works is Nightbreed, a quirky film involving monstrous creatures that live underground, away from the prying eyes of humans. It turns out, though, that despite their monstrous appearance, most of these creatures, dubbed Nightbreed, are mostly harmless and even benevolent in some instances. However, at the same time, a vicious serial killer is on the loose. and may or may not be connected to these strange creatures somehow. A young man named Aaron Boone is plagued by nightmares by both the serial killer and a mysterious underground city inhabited by these Nightbreed. From the looks of it, it seems that the killer and the creatures are connected. That is, until Boone's psychologist turns out to be the real killer all along and betrays him by framing him for his own murders. Aaron Boone is then killed by his own serial killer psychologist, but the story doesn't end there. In fact, this is where the actual story begins. See, the truth of the matter is that Aaron Boone is actually one of the Nightbreed all along and, after being slain, rises to become his true self. Boone then travels to Midian, the city of the Nightbreed, but this is when things take a turn for the worst. It turns out that Decker, Boone's psychotic psychologist, wants to destroy Midian and kill all the Nightbreed as he sees it as his mission to destroy any and all humans, which include the Nightbreed. For this reason, he has recruited Eagerman, a local police captain who is equally deranged and murderous as he is. And now we get to what is probably one of my more favorite works of Clive Barker. Here we have the film Lord of Illusions, which is based off another of Barker's short stories, The Last Illusion. This features the character Harry D'Amour, who works as a private detective who is now pitted against a murderous cult similar to Charles Manson's very own Manson family. The film opens with Kevin J. O'Connor of all people, who's better remembered for his role as Benny Gabor in The Mummy, playing the role of a troubled man named Philip Swan. He, along with several others, arrive at a remote commune somewhere in the Mojave Desert and confront a cult that's about to sacrifice a young girl to a mandrill of all things. Philip Swan then confronts a man named Nix, who is also called the Puritan, played by Daniel Von Bargen, the leader of this cult that seems to demand the sacrifice of their very own spouses and children. As it turns out, Philip Swan is actually a former student or apprentice of Nix who left when he discovered the extent of the Puritans' evil. However, he has returned to rescue the girl they intend to sacrifice and put an end to the Puritans' growing evil. In a scene I will never forget, Philip Swan and his companions place a magical and cruel mask over the face of the Puritan to put an end to his dark magic. Take note that the mask used was made of metal and equipped with screws and spikes that made sure that the mask stayed on the Puritan's face. The Puritan is then buried with the hope that his power is sufficiently sealed so that he will never rise again. The film then fast forwards to Harry D'Amour, the aforementioned detective played by Scott Bakula. He is called in to investigate the death of Philip Swan, who is now a famous stage magician, and he's married to a woman named Dorothea, played by Famke Janssen, who was actually the young girl about to be sacrificed earlier and is now all grown up. Apparently, Philip Swan had been killed in one of his acts, and Harry D'Amour is determined to find out just what really happened. What's truly disturbing is that even after his death, the cult of Nix, the Puritan, is still going strong, and D'Amour soon finds himself confronting them as well as they continue to pursue Philip Swan. Telling you more would spoil the film, and if you're a hardcore horror fan like me, you'd probably want to see it all for yourself. Anyway, that's it for this episode of Natural Juan. If you would like to see more content like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell for notifications. If you would like to support my channel and what I do here, just check out my Patreon, PayPal, and Gcash information in the description below. Natural Juan,